What's going on, my people? It's your boy Kayman, and I'm back with a brand new video. And in today's video, we'll be covering my Game Week 1 team selection. So without further ado, let's dive in. We're going to start with sales in goal. I originally had Sanchez in my Game Week 1 first draft as well as my updated draft. Now I did decide to move on from Sanchez, and I opted to go with sales in goal and double up on that Forest defense with Nico Williams as well as Konsa and Van de Ven. That's what I'm starting with for Game Week 1. I know that the two centre-backs that I'm paired with might not look pretty, but in the long run, they do have great fixtures, especially Konsa from Game Week 1 to 12. They have great fixture run. And the rotation between Van de Ven, Konsa, and Nico Williams, and I also have Richard on the bench with Steph. The rotation really works really well with them. If you guys look on the screen now, you will see the rotation and how they work. And pretty much every week, I have at least 2 promoted teams or at least 1 promoted team that my defenders are playing against. So I do like this rotation. Although Konsa is not good for DEFCON, I do think both Van de Ven as well as Richard and Nico Williams, they're both good for DEFCON as well as attacking threat. So I do like my defense. It's not really big at the back, considering the fact that obviously I originally had Tarkowski in my defense as well as Murillo. I've decided to take them out now and opted to go with double for ST to cover with Nico Williams and Sells. And the reason why I do not have Tarkowski is due to the fact that Brantford did pick up an injury, and that does weaken the defense for Everton. I don't really want to invest in there anymore. I also looked at having maybe Adam Asnew, but if they're not keeping clean sheets, what can you expect from them? They're not really going to be that attacking either. Whereas these players that are picked based on fixtures as well as potential for DEFCON, yes, I really do not have exactly big at the back, but I think it's in between. My most expensive defender is Nico Williams at 5 million. Potentially, if based on how the season starts and how the defenders play well, maybe there's a Porro or Munoz that I can switch to, but that will come later on depending on how they play. But at the end of the day, I do have the Forest defense covered along with Spurs as well as Palace. So I do think that to start the season, I have covered most defense that have good fixture on. And in midfield, we got Salah, Palmer, Saka. The structure still remain the same. I'm going with the 3 premium structure, as I've already covered in my updated draft. I do like Saka for game week captaincy, and the fact that he gives me a bit of like a differential edge within the game, because I do think a lot of people are ignoring the Arsenal attack. I do think they've made quite a few upgrades, especially when they signed Gyökeres. Their attack on paper should significantly improve compared to what they have been in past seasons. But again, you never know. But I'm choosing to maybe slightly take an edge there, considering the fact that it's quite low owned. And then I'm pairing them up with none other than Rodgers. I did have Tielemans originally, but I do have Rodgers right now, as we did receive the news that he was seen in training. And potentially, if he's in training, he should start come game week 1. But again, we'll wait for some leaks and more deadline as well as press conference news. And then last but not least, we still have Randall, who I did originally have in my draft. I still wanted to cover the City attack. I know there's talks of Anderson and I didn't got other good options. However, I still like Randers, considering the fact that I have no City attack. And the fixtures also to start the season really good. And his minutes should also be good, considering the fact that both Kovacic as well as Rodri picked up an injury. So the fact that I get a player that I can somewhat predict his minutes from City, which you almost can never do with Pep Guardiola. But this time I do think he does have like the minutes somewhat secured, but what position he plays, we still don't know. He could play the 10, he could play the 8 or the 6. You never know how Pep's going to line up. But again, it does feel comfortable to watch City games knowing that you do own someone, especially when I'm going without almost none, with no Marmoush, no Haaland, and they could definitely do well to start the season. And then in the forward line, we're starting with Chris Wood as well as Watkins. Chris Wood has a phenomenal fixture run from game week 1 to 6, where he plays 2 to 3 promoted teams. And to start with the season, he's playing a depleted Brentford team where they've lost their manager as well as Brian Mbeumo, which I do think weakens them significantly. And then we're pairing him up with Ollie Watkins. I am doubling up on the Villa attack with both Rodgers as well as Watkins. I think them both together, they do complement each other. Rodgers to Watkins, you can already see that assistant goal. And I do think they could do really well, considering that the fixture they have from 1 to 8, they play 2 promoted teams. They play Brentford, they also play Everton, who's by the week right now, and I think they can be targeted. So yeah, I think they have a really good fixture on. To start the season, I do want to double up, and not just double up, triple up on them with Konsa, Rodgers, and Watkins. It could potentially backfire, but I'm backing Emery in this scenario, and Villa, hopefully, it will go my way this time. I do have this option, though. Potentially, I could downgrade Saka to maybe a Marmoush or Wirtz, and then I could opt to maybe cover the Arsenal attack with Gyökeres. But I just think to take a punt on Gyökeres to start the season this early on, maybe a bit too risky, and £9 million punt is not what I want to do. I do still want to see how Gyökeres does when the season really starts. I know he looks somewhat decent in the preseason where he did score, but again, I want more sample size to be confident to go there, and I want to go with the assets that are more proven, especially the likes of Saka, Watkins, and obviously Salah and Palmer. At the moment, the way my structure is set up is with 4 premium, hence you guys can see I'm sacrificing in defense. That's the only worry I have, the fact that I do have my defense is kind of thin, but I do think I'm covering most bases, although I'm missing Arsenal defense, Liverpool defense. But I do think that their fixture to start the season is not too great. So I do think I can back against them, which is a bit dangerous. But again, I think it's possible. And as I said, Forest defense is still covered with Nico Williams and Sells. So if they were to clean, I'm still getting double the points compared to the field. On the bench, I have Dubravka with Richard, Estev, and Krupi. Krupi did get some minutes in the preseason, and I don't expect much from him if he does come off the bench, potentially one punter. But again, I do have Estev who does play for Burnley, and he seems to be the best 4 million defender at this moment in time, and he's also good for DEFCON, and he could come in some weeks for me as a rotation defender. And then Richard is really good for DEFCON points. He plays for Palace, and Palace does not have great fixture to start the season with. That's why he's on the bench. He does play Chelsea in the opening fixture, but the following week he does a Forest, and then after that he does play Villa. But from then they have Sunderland and West Ham, and then some really good fixtures. So I do think I can rotate him well with Van der Ven. So that's how I'm lining up at the moment. So yeah, I'm currently on Salah captaincy. As you guys will see on the captain slide, there are 3 options. Obviously, you got Salah, you got Palmer, and obviously you got Haaland. Obviously, I do not own Haaland, so I'm looking at both Salah and Palmer captaincy. And for me, Salah is the better cap by miles. And for me, Salah is just the best captain on paper, and it's not even close between whether it's Palmer or Haaland. I do think there's a good shot for Haaland, but I just think the fact that Salah's opening record in the first game is phenomenal, and he's been proving it like season after season. We saw what he done last season, and ultimately you're captaining him because he's Mo Salah, and he's playing Bournemouth where they've lost 2 of their starting centre back in Hoyson as well as Zabani. And now I know they've signed a new centre back, but we don't know how good he will be. And I think they can be targeted. They're not exactly at the best of preseason. They've conceded a bunch of goals, especially to United. They've conceded 4 goals. So you can only imagine what Liverpool could do to them at home, especially because Salah, is just Mo Salah, bro. So yeah, I do not want to back against her 200% EO Mo Salah come game week 1. And I do think that it's a good fixture on paper, and potentially he's even a captaincy shout. It's a bit of a sticky one to triple captain him in game week 1 because there's a lot of risk involved. But again, the fact that we have double chips, double the fun, you could potentially edge it there and look for an edge, because if you captain him and when everyone's captain, you're not really getting an edge. But if you want to get an extra edge and a bit differential, potential for there to be a triple captaincy shout. But I'll probably recommend just keeping that chip and use it, and maybe when he plays Sunderland or Burnley, one of the promoted teams, because at the end of the day, Bournemouth is still a respectable team and they do like to compete. And you can never underestimate Areola, especially considering the season that he had last season. So yeah, I'm currently on Salah captaincy. My vice is on Saka. I do think Saka could do very well versus United. Our defense is not very strong. And I think, although we have signed a lot of attackers, United, I still think we're really weak in our midfield. And when you're looking at the goals considered charts, which by the way, kindly done by Meerkat, which you guys will see on the screen, we are very vulnerable centrally. And whenever there's a counter attack, you'll always see our midfield is basically thin and there's nowhere to be found. And they can really rip us open. Even Gakros could do well. So I do think Saka, people are looking at the United fixture and I think it's very tough. Don't get me wrong, it is a rivalry and it is tough, but I do think there's goals in that game on both sides, especially for Arsenal, considering the fact that our defense and our midfield is almost non-existent at this moment in time. I know we're in for Belieber, but when that deal will get done, we do not know. But at the moment, when you play Bruno or Ugarte or even Casemiro in the pivot, it's a long day, I'll be honest with you. But still, I back my team. I hope we can pull out a result. And I'm predicting to be a high-scoring game come game week 1. That'll be it for this video. Let me know what you guys think of my team. Make sure to leave a comment down below and subscribe. And tune in for the deadline stream that I'll be doing on Friday, by the way. As well as I'll be doing a watch-along on Sunday, which is the Arsenal and the United game. Make sure to tune in for that. And I also have a special announcement. We did have launched a Patreon service, Peer Pressure Plus. And if you want the exclusive content, make sure to go subscribe and show us some love and support, where we'll be obviously giving you one-to-one support on your teams. And if you have any questions, we'll also have a lot of giveaways. So yeah, there's a lot of fun to join. There's a good community. So yeah, thank you guys so much. And I'm going to see you in the next one. Peace out.